The story you're about to read isn't just about politics. It's a parable for our polarized age. It's about a 5-minute speech, a single moment that was never meant to go viral, and a young woman who refused to stay quiet. This is the tale of an attempted professional suffocation that became a national moment, proving that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply refuse to be silenced. Before we dive into this epic showdown, if you want to keep receiving stories that challenge the status quo, hit that subscribe button, give us a like, and tell us in the comments what you think is the biggest threat to free speech today. Now, let's get into it. It all began in a glossy, high-profile policy summit in Washington, D.C., one of those events packed with donors, reporters, and Beltway insiders who pretend not to be checking their Twitter feeds during the panels. The theme was speech in a polarized era, a topic that usually led to carefully crafted, safe remarks. Most of the speakers played it safe, offering polished, inoffensive lines that wouldn't rock the boat. But one guest, a young conservative woman named Karoline Leavitt, had other plans. She walked up to the mic in a crisp navy blazer, straightening her notes. She paused just long enough to look the cameras dead on, her gaze unwavering. Free speech isn't just for the popular or the powerful. It's for the kid in the back of the class who's too scared to speak up because someone told him his values are dangerous. The room went completely silent. No one shifted. A sense of unease began to settle over the crowd. Leavitt didn't falter. She kept going, her message building in intensity. We are raising a generation of self-censors, not because they're timid, but because they've been trained to fear disagreement. A few awkward coughs broke the silence. A moderator shifted uncomfortably in his seat, his eyes darting between Leavitt and the audience. This wasn't the pre-approved script. This was a direct challenge. She leaned in, her voice now a sharp, focused point. We don't need safe spaces from ideas. We need leaders with the spine to face them. That line, that single line, was the spark that ignited the online world. It was clipped, captioned, and looped 1,000,000 times within hours. It resonated with some, infuriated others, and became a fast-moving wildfire. And not everyone liked what they were seeing, especially not Senator Chuck Schumer. Within a day, whispers began to swirl on Capitol Hill. An anonymous aide leaked an email chain showing senior Democratic staffers discussing platforming consequences for what they called rhetorical extremism. Karoline Leavitt's name was on that thread. The pressure was about to begin. Speaking invites were pulled. A think tank rescinded a roundtable slot. A major network canceled her scheduled appearance, citing scheduling conflicts. None of it was officially linked to Schumer, of course, but everyone knew. The silence wasn't accidental. It was engineered, and if he thought she would disappear quietly, he was about to be very, very wrong.
The pressure came swiftly and silently, like a slow professional suffocation. By the end of the week, Karoline Leavitt's inbox looked like a war zone. The speaking engagement she had lined up for months were suddenly postponed until further notice. A think tank that had courted her for a fellowship rescinded their offer, citing an ambiguous reevaluation of our mission. A major network where she was scheduled for a marquee Sunday show suddenly had a scheduling conflict that couldn't be resolved. The cancellations weren't just random. They were a coordinated, undeniable message. They were meant to show her the consequences of stepping out of line. A growing list of high-profile pundits began echoing a single word on cable news and Twitter: divisive. It was a textbook political freeze-out. She had seen it happen to others. A conservative voice gets too loud, too direct, or too inconvenient, and suddenly they're labeled dangerous, controversial, or worse, a threat to democracy. That last one, she noticed, was now being tweeted by staffers close to Senator Schumer. It was a digital guillotine, and she was meant to be its latest victim. The goal was to make her disappear quietly, to have her voice fade into the background noise of 1,000 other news cycles. But if the political old guard thought she would retreat, they were about to be very, very wrong. Karoline didn't shrink from the onslaught. Instead of withdrawing, she doubled down. She knew the game they were playing, and she refused to follow their rules. From her home studio in New Hampshire, she went live that Sunday night on her own stream. No producer, No filter, no pre-approved script. Just her, a camera, and the truth. She looked straight into the lens, her gaze as unflinching as it had been on the stage in D.C. "Let's be crystal clear," she said. "This wasn't about public safety. This was about silencing a young conservative woman because she refuses to sit down and stay quiet." The moment was raw, unfiltered, and it was the spark that would ignite a revolution.
The moment was a digital gut punch. Clips from her Sunday night stream were picked up by conservative influencers within minutes, and within hours, she was trending again. This time, not as a guest, but as a force. But the real turning point, the blunder that would echo through the halls of power, came the very next day. During a routine press scrum, a reporter lobbed a casual question at Senator Chuck Schumer. "Any response to the claims you're trying to suppress Karoline Leavitt's platform?" He laughed. It was one of those tight, calculated DC chuckles, a practiced dismissal. "I don't know who that is," he said, and turned away. It was a big mistake. That line became a rallying cry. Within the hour, Karoline's supporters had clipped the footage and plastered it across every platform with a simple, powerful caption, "You will know her name." That night, Leavitt Unfiltered was the top trending topic on X. What began as a quiet purge was now a full-blown backlash. The fire that Schumer's office had tried to extinguish with a professional freeze-out was now a raging digital wildfire, fueled by his own carelessness. Karoline wasn't just reacting anymore. She was planning her counterstrike. Her team, a group of young, scrappy staffers who understood the new media landscape, knew exactly how to weaponize a headline. They had already booked her on 3 independent shows by Monday. But Karoline wanted more. She told her media strategist, "If Schumer wants to pretend he doesn't know who I am, then let's make sure he hears my name on every network, every podcast, every panel for the next 7 days." By Tuesday, she had secured an invitation to speak at a live town hall in New York, the very heart of Schumer's political territory. The subject? When free speech becomes a target. It was a perfect, audacious move. Schumer's attempt at quiet suffocation had failed spectacularly, and it was now rapidly evolving into Karoline's national moment. The night of the town hall, the venue was packed with young conservatives, moderates, and even independents, all curious to hear the woman the establishment had so publicly tried to erase. When Karoline stepped onto the stage, she didn't open with statistics or buzzwords. She opened with a name. She looked into the packed theater and with a calm smile said, "Senator Schumer, since you claim not to know who I am, allow me to introduce myself." The crowd erupted. The game had officially changed.
The fallout from the town hall wasn't just digital, it was political. Capitol Hill was buzzing the next day. It wasn't just the speech, but the reaction, a force of nature that no one had predicted. Clips of Karoline's fiery monologue flooded the morning shows, and even anchors who had previously dismissed her were now forced to acknowledge one thing. She had command, she had momentum, and she wasn't backing down. Chuck Schumer, meanwhile, was trying to pretend none of it mattered, but the whispers in Senate offices told a different story. Junior staffers were now quoting Karoline's speech in private policy briefings. Conservative senators were referencing her line, "I'm not going anywhere," during floor debates. And then came the real bombshell. A new internal memo surfaced, marked sensitive, showing that Schumer's office had contacted 3 media outlets before Karoline's cancellations. The story was no longer about what Karoline said. It was about what Chuck Schumer did to stop her from saying it. By Thursday, a sitting congresswoman known for sparking cable news chaos formally requested a House subcommittee to investigate the coordinated censorship of political speech. Karoline had gone from being silenced to becoming a symbol. But she wasn't satisfied with just attention. She wanted action, and she knew exactly how to keep the fire burning. Her next move? A nationally broadcast debate. The network, reluctant at first, couldn't say no after the rating spike from her last appearance. Her opponent was a surprise, one of Schumer's closest allies, a legacy Democrat with a long media trail and a short fuse. She had studied him. She knew his talking points, his deflection tactics, even his nervous tics. As she sat down in the makeup chair, a producer leaned over and whispered, "He's gonna come at you hard." Karoline didn't blink. So will I. The debate was a brutal, electrifying showdown. When her opponent accused her of playing the victim card, she shot back, "Then why is everyone working so hard to erase my words?" The line landed like a gut punch. The entire segment was a masterclass in controlled defiance, and before it even ended, clips were hitting the internet, racking up millions of views. The headlines screamed, "Leavitt shreds Schumer ally in live debate." Karoline had not just survived, she had won. And in doing so, she had turned her personal fight into a full-blown referendum on the power of the establishment to control public discourse.
The debate was a political earthquake, and the aftershocks were immediate and seismic. Karoline's phone exploded with support, not just from allies, but from a few on-the-fence moderates who had quietly kept their distance until now. By sunrise, her team had uploaded the full debate to every platform with a defiant title. "They tried to silence me. Now they're the ones running." Within 24 hours, it had been viewed over 10 million times. Chuck Schumer's press team scrambled, issuing a dull statement about responsible discourse that was instantly torn apart online. As they struggled to control the narrative, Karoline delivered her boldest move yet. She announced a public hearing on free speech in the age of political gatekeeping and issued a direct challenge to Schumer to show up. It was a checkmate. But the final confrontation wasn't about a hearing. It was about a TV studio. Schumer, under immense pressure, requested a televised discussion about Karoline, not with her. The panel was packed with academics and strategists, all ready to dissect her. But Karoline didn't wait for an invitation. She walked calmly onto the set, took the empty seat of a mysteriously absent analyst, and, with the cameras rolling, raised a hand to the host. "No need," she said. "Let's talk." For the next 40 minutes, she dismantled every argument with evidence and calm defiance, not with outrage. When a pundit said she'd made powerful people uncomfortable, she simply replied, "Good. That means I'm doing something right." By the end, the room was quiet. She stood up, shook hands, and walked off without another word. The clip broke viewing records. Chuck Schumer never mentioned her name again, but it was too late. Her name was now etched into the political lexicon, not as a disruptor, but as a force. She returned to her grassroots tour in Middle America, turning down countless D.C. invitations. She had proven her point. You don't have to be loud to be heard, you don't have to be liked to be respected, and you don't have to play the game to change the rules. By the time the next election cycle began, dozens of young candidates across the country cited her as their inspiration. They didn't just survive Washington, they had rewritten the playbook. This wasn't just a political victory, it was a generational shift. In a world full of scripted talking points and managed narratives, Karoline Leavitt chose raw truth. She chose the people, and the people chose her back. Her story is a reminder that in the halls of power, courage speaks the loudest. If you found this story inspiring, make sure to like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and leave a comment below. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories of courage and truth.